Look at that. And boom, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Mr. Damian Squires. What are you doing, dude?
Oh, just out there enjoying our business.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Saving the world one mortgage at a time?
I'm having fun. Again, it's, this business is trying for everybody, no matter what aspect you're in. That's something I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years is, you can be at the pinnacle of what you think your career looks like, and then you kind of reassess with each, change that happens to you, and you keep rolling. So when I decided to go back into origination, there were no answers that I had. It was like, hey, I'm gonna go out there and work hard, and it's really, really taught me a couple of things about myself. Is hey, I'm resetting after,
years
10 years
of
not even years in the executive side and going back into the origination side. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm engaging with home buyers and people that aren't quite there yet, and I'm using what I've learned over the last 20 plus years to help them out, and just seeing the smiles on the faces and the going to closings. I always preach that as a leader.
Yeah.
And I'm practicing what I was preaching.
Right.
And it's really been something that's been fulfilling.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Big B Mortgage Podcast. As I did drop his name already, I am sitting in the chair today with Mr. Damian Squires, who I've known. How long have we known each other now, dude?
Going on
10 years,
10,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
Dude, wow. And what always blew my mind is that even though I never knew you prior to meeting you, our paths were like very parallel when you hear the stories.
Well,
right?
It's a small and incestuous business we work in.
That's a wild word you just used there.
We, it's such a small industry. In my past life, when I was, making the tours of, regional and national circles, in the MBA and different organizations, I'd run into people that I knew their name.
Right.
You'd hear their names, and then I became friends with a lot of them, and still, see people. We've got a lot of new faces and names that are kind of entering into those circles, which is always great. I mean, it's great for our industry.
We need it.
We do. I mean, those are some of the assessments that we did, years ago, were that, our labor force was aging. After 2008, we didn't have a lot of people entering the labor force in the mortgage industry.
Right.
And getting those new faces and new names and, people that are excited about it, it makes our business better, and it motivates me, honestly, to have somebody who's coming straight out of college to come in and kind of at the point I was at 20 years ago. Yeah. But back to those circles that we all run into. It's funny, the people that you run across. Nassifar and I were just talking about an agent in common that we share, and he's like, yeah, my agent called me and said, You reached out to him, and I said, hey, man, I'm not trying to step on your toes. I'm just out there.
I'm just out there making money.
Yeah, I'm out there hustling. So, it's, I think, for me, having, been on a different side of it, coming back into it, I'm rejuvenated on it. Now, do I have the ups and downs that everybody has? Absolutely. Because it's tough, you're practicing what you were preaching for so many years, and you're out there, saying, hey, well, I've time blocked for 2 hours. I need to sit down and make my damn phone calls. Right. Yep. And whether it's on the recruiting side or on the production side, of going out there and winning business, it's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's not
sales is sales.
Well, and
at the end of the day,
there's some very bright guys in the business who run a huge sales training platform, and I don't need to plug them, but they refuse to call you a loan officer. You're a sales rep. Or that's the definition that you have, is that you're in sales and you're a sales rep.
Right.
And so, if you look at it from that aspect, which I don't think a lot of people were ever taught in our industry.
Sales?
Yeah.
Right.
mean, you and I both know that, coming from hard sales experiences. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, we're going to touch on that.
Okay. When you come from hard sales experiences where they teach you closes and they teach you the definition of what a close is.
Right.
I can tell you the first 10 years in the business when I was in wholesale, most of the loan officers I was engaging didn't know that I was closing them.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let me send this file up to underwriting.
Yeah.
Let's just get you a quick underwrite on it.
Yeah, let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
And if you want to use it, it's there.
Yeah. So,
let's save you some time.
Yeah. So, just like any of us in the industry, most of us weren't, unless you, and I say this, unless you went to a company that was very large, like a Countrywide or one of their offshoots, Full Spectrum, where they invested in you. You didn't get a lot of training. If you did what I did and went out and worked for a small broker shop, they basically gave me a 1003, the ability to pull credit, and a Fannie Mae, book, and said, "Hey,
go get it, Tiger.
Yeah, go talk to your sphere of influence." And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
who's that?
What's that? What's a sphere? I don't have a ball.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned, because I think back to when I made the jump, and had I not had all that, let's call it hard sales, straight line training or whatever, dude, I don't know how I'd have done it. Because when you have that, when you're just, I don't want to call it force fed, but when you're trained as disciplined as our industries that we were in before trained you, you think differently.
Yeah.
I just feel like you see an opportunity differently than if it's like, okay, I'm going to go be a loan officer, and now what? I paid this money, I took this test, I made it.
Yeah.
And now what do I do? Well, you go call realtors. Okay, cool. What do I tell them? It's like, and it's just, you're starting from ground zero. And for you, again, and this is why I want you to share the story, right? Because I mean, again, coming back, South Texas boy, right?
Yeah.
Grew up in Corpus Christi.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
not far from you.
Yeah, no, I was down there schlepping it in Laredo and the Valley.
Yeah.
You were at least on the coast.
Yeah, we made some trips to Laredo. We used to play a couple of teams over there in football and go stay at La Posada, and a lot of fun.
Dude, that place is. So I stayed there last year on one of my trips down because my usual joint was booked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll stay at Old Faithful.
Yeah, yeah.
That place is it's as nice as it is, and the restaurant's still really good.
Yeah.
It is so creepy, dude.
Yeah.
Like it is like
some ghosts running around.
Dude, it's historic, but it's scary as hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So grew up in Corpus, and came back to Austin, back in the late mid '90s to finish college, and stumbled into the mortgage business kind of by accident. I wanted to coach football.
Really?
Quickly found out. I substitute taught and was finishing my degree, and then found out that I didn't really enjoy, the teaching aspect of that. And when I say that, not that I didn't like teaching, children. I enjoyed the high school kids were okay. The middle school was a nightmare. I just didn't have the patience for that level.
Gotcha.
And when you start in coaching, it's very hard to break out of that and get up to the next level. I mean, I watched these guys who, coach my kids, and, I kind of looked at it and said, looking back now, it's easy to see, but, I could have spent a 25-year career in middle school, which just wasn't where my heart was.
Right.
Now I enjoy that because I've coached my children and through their different sports, and then coach my sons. I'm actually coaching their 7-on-7 league right now.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So they're 14. They're going into high school next year, and so I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I enjoy the athletic aspect of it. I didn't enjoy the educational aspect of it.
Gotcha.
But ended up, taking a job in a company that was really hardcore sales, and I had these loan officers coming in and saying, "Hey, we can help you." I was, doing new home sales, and these loan officers would come in and they're like, "Hey, I want your business. We can help you." And really kind of looked at that and said, "Wow, these guys seem to, know a lot. They're very intelligent. They have, and that's something that I've always gone back to is, the need for getting better,
Sure.
learning something new, or polishing, on what I already know, but even learn, taking it to the next level." So when these loan officers would come in, I'd ask them, and then I quickly learned that some of them didn't know what the heck they were doing.
Come on, man, that never happens.
Yeah. So, and I went and, started putting my resume out, and this guy from this little broker shop called me up, and he said, "Hey, you got a teaching background," because prior to that, I was, when I was younger, I had the great experience of living in the Caribbean and diving and becoming a rescue diver through PADI. Not, I certainly wasn't a professional rescue diver, but that's a designation you get after you take so many hours. But I got that designation and essentially followed up and worked on dive boats for 5 or 6 years or 4 years while my parents lived in the Caribbean. I'd go down there and work the summers. So he liked the teaching and background of what my resume had on it, and said, "You know what, I think you do great at this job. Here's your 1003 and here's the ability to pull credit and go out and get some loans." But I learned from that because we have sales meetings and there'd be these LOs, and it's a lot like how you hear, typical sales meetings go. Everyone would come in and they talk about, what they wanted to do, how they were going to try it, and then everyone would get up and go out, and I sat there and I'm like, "Well, where the heck are they going?" They're like, "Well, we're going to go drop donuts off at realtors," and I was like, "Well, I don't have any money for donuts."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What am I going to do?" And the guy who taught me the business, just a great guy. He's passed away since then. He would go and he'd go to his file cabinet and he'd open his file cabinet and he'd thumb through the deals and just look at files. And every week he'd say, "There's millions of dollars in here." And every month that guy closed 4 or 5 loans from that file cabinet. And
right.
I was like, I want to get to a point to where there's some sort of annuity in my business, and I look at that, and that's always been something that is lost in our industry. People don't work that database that they have enough. They don't go back to it. And this is the guy, and I reflect on this quite a bit because this is the guy who taught me the business 20 plus years ago, and he was doing that.
Yeah.
And today we're still chasing that. We're still trying to get, if you're a manager like yourself or, in my past when I was a manager, I was always, a little beleaguered that people didn't do it, that they didn't work that database because that was just an annuity for them, an extra source of business. So anyway, that kind of started the channel, or started me down the path of this career in mortgage. And I'd have these AEs come in, and so it was kind of another learning point for me. They'd come in and they'd say, "Hey, I can do your deals, and
send me your loans."
And just like with the loan officer thing, I kind of learned that some of them knew what the heck they were talking about, and some of them were just maybe a pretty face or somebody's nephew, or
really good at hitting happy hour.
Yeah, they were spending a lot of money at happy hour. They were and so I got with a friend of mine that I made, had a great relationship with, learning, kind of what he did on the wholesale side, and jumped into that aspect of it. And, that kind of was a turning point for me, was really becoming, successful in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up partnering with a very large company.
That's when you jumped into the wholesale side, right?
Yeah. Partnering with a very large company, and my career began to blossom, and it was really a good time. And like many people in our industry, that 2000 to 2007 was a great time for all of us.
It was a good run.
Yeah,
Good run.
Yeah, it's been a good life. But it's what I look at throughout my career. One thing I always reflect back on is, there are those runs, and then there's
lulls.
There's the straights and the corners.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like any race. There's times when you feel like, gosh, I'm not going to be able to push around that next turn, and then you hit that straightaway, and you're like, hey, there's a breeze behind me, and I'm going.
Yeah.
So that's I guess the metaphor for my experience in this industry is that it's been a great run around. I always learn where to push myself in the turns, and live off of what happens in the straights.
Yeah.
So
I think it's that first downstroke that's the hardest, though. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, because we've both been through ups and downs and side turns and the whole 9 yards. And I remember, like, obviously 08 was a completely different animal.
Yeah.
I mean, that was holy crap. And that's why last year with the margin compressions and stuff like that, people are, I start hearing people like, oh, is it the next 08? And I'm like, shut your mouth. Just shut the hell up. Get out of my office. No.
Yeah. Well, nobody wants to welcome that back, or even talk about it, because it was such a bad time. It's funny, as soon as you said, the first one, I was immediately went to Sheryl Crow's song, "The First Cut is the Deepest."
Yeah, it feels like it.
Just how my mind works. But, the 2008, the financial crisis, I talk to people about that all the time, because, people know that I was with, one of the evil empire, and I always joke about it, because people will look back and say, oh my gosh, you that was the reason that this whole thing happened. And one of my favorite books, and of course now it's a movie now, is The Big Short. And it's so, I think it's history that people need to read, because they don't really understand what all contributed to it.
Yeah.
They don't understand that the bond rating agencies were just as evil as Goldman Sachs or as Countrywide Home Loans. There were things that were happening. They don't understand, going back in history, that when you look at what President Clinton and Barney Frank were trying to accomplish with opening up home ownership to so many people, that once you brought Wall Street into it, it was a it was a recipe for disaster, because greed took over.
Greed is good.
Yeah.
Well, you the movie.
You saw companies like, and I'm going to mention their name, because they are out of business, but you saw companies like Argent come in and, capitalize with Wall Street money, and become an overnight success, based on, fallacious ratings through Barron's, through some of these, the bond agencies backing them. It was really, they had an IndyCar, they had reps in every market, and they were gobbling up, a portion of the business that really shouldn't have been being done.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that, I was at Countrywide for 7 years, and we were looking at them going, wow, y'all can have that. I mean, 100% stated investor on a fourplex. Great.
Yeah, you and Option One go hang out together.
Yeah, I can even, Option One, I looked at them as a great competitor initially on, and when you look at how they rated credit, it was a smart system. They didn't put as much on the FICO score. They put more on the
on the worthiness,
the number of accounts that were in good standing, the most 12 months history. It was really a prior to automated underwriting, and I think we can touch on that in a second. I think automated underwriting actually had its part to play.
Oh, yeah. It was loose.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, dude, the company I work for, our big thing was this system we had created called Access Point, which gave the originator the opportunity to generate an approval and close the loan within as little as 3 days.
Yeah.
This is all prior to all the TRID and NMLS crap, right? But what I found out later is all we did was built a layover to automated underwriting.
Yeah.
So we were running, and I won't say which one, but we were running.
It was likely Clues. I mean, everybody was running.
Dude. When you come out and you tell somebody you're going to do a full doc loan, but your assets are stated.
Yeah.
It's like
we could probably talk about that subject for hours, but without diving completely into it, it's unfortunate because there were a lot of folks that deserved homes that were good, that would pay on them. There were a lot of folks that shouldn't have done that, cash out in the first place, which put them behind.
Right.
And when a market is moving up, when the values keep increasing, they can continue to live off of those cash out funds and the equity in their home. But as soon as it stops rising, then it just turns into another crisis.
Yeah.
So the bubble burst, as they all say. But there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me that can talk, about that.
More diligently.
Yeah, with more depth and I know where I was at. It was devastating, and that's the bottom line. Is we all experienced it, and then a year and a half later, there was an opportunity for great things to happen.
Right.
And that's kind of
which is right around the time you and I met.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
what was funny is during that period, because what a lot of people don't know is that it actually started like in 06.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all talk about 08. That's just when it really hit the fan. But you started to see stuff happening in 06. So like 06 and then part of 07, I remember I saw the writing on the wall, right? And my friends are switching companies every 4 or 5 months and
sign-on bonuses and
dude, I just didn't want to go down that road. So I did what you're doing now. I went out, got my license, and I started slinging FHAs while everybody else was chasing EA1 and EA3.
Yeah.
My community.
I was selling those. Yeah.
I was just like, nah, dude, let's do some FHA govies. And I rode that wave for quite a while.
Yeah.
Right up until, I think for me, it really hit bad. Like, I met you in 10? I think it was 9 or 10.
9, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I became a recruiter.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the hell a recruiter was.
Well, and I that word has always kind of been something that I'm not partial to, because I think obviously you went on and had a number of roles with us, and recruiting is tough. It's a tough job, and for me, thinking of someone as just a recruiter has never been. I just don't like the moniker. I like more to think about it as somebody who's out there. It's really a business development / management job, because and don't get me wrong, there are the recruiting houses where you just have someone sitting down with a list and smiling and dialing, and to me that would be a recruiter. But for you guys and the idea behind what I was trying to build was really somebody who was more of an area manager and would be in a support role, and it's not honestly much different from the position that you're holding now.
Right.
Because you're in charge of growth, you're in charge of oversight, you have a fiscal responsibility to the area. So for me, that was the idea behind it, the premise behind it, and obviously, as things change within the organization, then my ability to push that identifier and that job description onto that position changed. So, but for the guys that that were a part of that, it was really special. And for me, it was something that you guys really were the foundation for building that organization, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I mean, uh, it was a good time, and that's exactly what, when you say, hey, there's, ebbs and flows, and there's straights and corners. I mean, that's what you experience in this business, and
Right.
In any business, I believe. My coming from South Texas, my family is mostly in the petrochemical industry, and I can tell you that I made a conscious decision years ago never to go into that business, because we think we have ebbs and flows. I mean, that'll turn off and on overnight.
Yeah.
And it can be just as devastating, if not more, depending on which side you're on.
Well, I mean, every industry's gone through it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody. Well, a lot of people remember the tech bust.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're in tech, then you're listening to this going, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Do you remember 2001 or do you remember 96?
Yeah. Cry me a river. But at the end of the day, though, yeah, every industry is going to have its ebb and flow, right? Every up and down. So it just is what it is, man. I mean, I always tell people mortgage is like the mob, though. Like once you get in, it's damn near impossible to get out.
Yeah.
Because when it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
So, well, let's get to what you're doing now. Because I mean, you've held many senior leadership roles, and I know, like, in talking to you, you just came to a point where it was like, I'm just kind of sick of being on the plane.
Well, a couple of times, and this has been my career. There are times when you decide to make a change, and there's the times, especially at the level, the national or even the regional level, that decision's made for you.
Right.
And there's never anything that I take personally in that, because I'm a numbers guy. I've always been a numbers guy. I've always gone back to the numbers, and if the numbers don't work out, then a lot of times, that your position is just either not necessary, or we just can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of an epiphany for me was, what, I've kind of gotten on this ladder, and climbed up and down, and I'm sitting in Nashville, Tennessee, and my twin boys have a track meet, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, this is their first track meet of their middle school lives, and I can't be there. And so when it happened a couple weeks later, when I got laid off, I said, what, I want to be there. I'm not going to, and there were a couple of opportunities where people were saying, hey, come and help manage this region, or come help grow our company, and and those were appealing, but I sat down, with my wife, and I sat down and I said, hey, this is what I think I want to do. And she was fully supportive of it. And, has it been tough? Obviously. I mean, you go through this, phase where you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? And then you have, big highs and big lows. I mean,
right.
And I don't think that's different, from where I was previously, and in the recruiting and growth game that, you can work, your sales cycle is so long. Your sales cycle, you could work with someone for a year, you could work with someone for 3 years and finally get them, or not get them. I think what I've found in the loan side of it, or in the production side of it, is my sales cycle is, a couple weeks. I can look at it and go, okay, well, either I'm going to get this or I'm not. So the bounce back is a lot easier, So I'm enjoying it. I mean, like I said in the beginning, it's been a learning curve, not so much in that I'm learning, to redo anything. It's okay, how do I approach this in 2018 and 19 as opposed to 1998?
Yeah. The approach has definitely evolved, right? Like, You know, I mean, again, with so much push on the social sphere.
Yeah.
You know, and what I'm seeing, and I'm not going to knock anybody's content. Hell, I mean, this podcast is online. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's why I'm here.
You know what I mean?
It's exposure.
Like, it's exposure, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, yeah, the landscape's changed. Like, it's not just grab your rate sheets, grab your tacos, and go do a 5-minute presentation. Like, there's definitely different approaches to it now. But the cool part is again, you know, kind of going back, because sales is sales.
Yeah.
When you know sales at its core and at its essence, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the landscape is. You're going to adapt, you're going to move forward, and you're going to excel.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like you've been doing. I mean, let me see. What was it? The one group you signed up is how many agents?
500.
500 agents.
Plus,
And you're pretty much the guy, right?
Well, no. I mean, I have an opportunity. This is always how I've looked at anything like this, because we've been down this road. You know, at our previous company, we were affiliated with a very large real estate company, or about the same size, actually, a little larger than the group I'm partnering with. But it's just an opportunity. It's not, you know, hey, I'm getting all the deals.
Right.
It's, you know, it's an opportunity to build some relationships.
They've allowed you in the door.
Exactly. I've gotten in the door, and that honestly comes from a past relationship that, you know, I made calls on. People ask me, you know, how did you do that? And I picked up the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I hate to, you know, trivialize it, but I made phone calls. I mean, that's what I'm continuing to do. I sat down for, you know, 2 hours yesterday and made phone calls, and, you know, calling the agents that are on that list.
You know, but here's the thing, though. Like, when you're calling these agents, man, you're not just, you know, hi, this is Damian Squires.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about the benefits of, you know, no, man.
Yeah.
I mean, your approach is more what?
Well, so I've
Because I feel like I already know the answer. I just want to hear you say it.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to disappoint you, but, you know, I actually have an in, because we've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives for the company. We've been building this up, and it's really only been since December, so it's relatively new, right, the relationship. But, you know, my approach is that what can I do for you? What value can I provide for you? And that's how I've always approached, you know, whether it was you and I going on the road and trying to bring a group on, you know, we were going to sell them on the value of what we had.
Right.
And that's, you know, I want to be a resource. First of all, I want to use, you know, the 22 years of experience to answer those questions that I know, or find out the ones that I don't. I am not going to, you know, just say yes to something when I don't have the exact answer that needs to be there, you know. And that's how I've kind of always looked at it, is, hey, you know what, I will have to check on that, because, you know, it's all it does. And I learned this early on in my career. You know, if you say yes to everything, eventually it's going to blow up on you.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, the phone calls are a little warmer because of the prep work that we've done with it. You know, I had a great rollout introduction video shot with the broker of record. You know, so there's a warm introduction to it. So my sales calls, you know, the first time call is, you know, finding a commonality. You know, hey, you know, I know you've been with, you know, this brokerage for 4+ years, you know, and you probably got it. You're a very successful agent. You've got a couple of people, you know, that you are sending your loans to. I would just love to spend 15 minutes with you to talk about what I do, how I do it, and, you know, provide you with information, and potentially become, you know, your third on the list.
Right.
You know, because agents are real big in having 3 people on their list, and if I can find myself on the list with, you know, one of your guys, one of the other great originators out there, then I've got at least a 33% chance of winning business.
Yeah.
And that's more than I had
before you made that phone call.
Yeah. So.
You mean you're not just telling the agent, like, I know you're working with so and so and they suck?
No, because.
Come on.
You know, I can't do that, especially my primary focus is the Austin business. This brokerage covers the state, and that eventually my goal is to have teams in the other marketplaces. But so many of the folks in Austin are my friends, first of all.
Right.
People that I go and have dinners with, or I'll go and we'll have social time together, or I go to church with. So many of them are people that I know, and so many of them are great at what they do that there's no, I can't say a disparaging comment about them.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't in the first place. That ruins your credibility regardless.
And that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's hack.
yeah. I mean, that's Bush League.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just,
that's beginner shit.
get your spitballs out because, I mean, but.
Why don't you throw some fun tack in my hair while you're at it?
Yeah. But, there are so many people that are good, and some of those people, have worked with me, have worked for me. What am I saying about my credibility if I bash somebody that was, a long-time branch manager for me?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's, so I think that one thing I found in going back to the incestuous nature of our industry is that you never know who you're going to work with or for, and so you can't ever, really approach life that way, I guess.
Well, I mean, dude, just as a general rule of thumb, don't talk smack. I mean, it just like it just
in jest, maybe.
Like if you're like you and I
stab at each other.
We'll sit there and rib on each other all day long, but at the end of the day, it's like I walk out of this room, somebody tells me, "Oh yeah, I'm working with dude. He's top notch."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's it's different, but it's baloney to sit there and just talk shit about your competition. I've never understood it, even though I have done it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm guilty of it, but
I a little stab here and there is, in jest, but I mean, it's not my technique by any means. But,
right. I mean, there are companies I think are, bogus, but we'll leave that for another podcast.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, and I don't even, we all have pride in what we're doing. I mean, you can, you work for a great company. I work for a great company. It's a lot of people that are sitting on the outside don't necessarily know all the intricacies of what's happening at that company. And, just like any industry, there's always a bunch of gossip.
Oh, yeah.
And, there's gossip about people, and there's, gossip about what's happening at that particular organization. I try to stay out of that because, I mean, if I talk to somebody for 20 minutes about that gossip, then that's 20 minutes that I've just wasted not making phone calls,
not making money,
prospecting. It's green activities and red activities, and gossip is like it's so red it's almost maroon. I mean, I don't, which color is a color I don't like, but
hey, as he looks at my shirt, take it easy there, Turbo.
Yeah, but no, I mean, the opportunity came about. And it's a blessing. We worked on it for a few months to make sure that we had like-minded goals, and put it together and rolled it out in December, and it's given me the opportunity to go out there and really see what I can do.
Well, the thing I love about it too, about what you're doing, man, is I can kind of feel like the passion in your voice when you talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're like during some of those leadership deals past when we worked together, it was kind of like I would talk to you, and we didn't talk every day, but when I would talk to you, it kind of just felt like,
just going through the motions.
Just
I think that
going through life.
Yeah. Well, and life happens,
And now I talk to you, and it's like, dude, I'm out there, I'm slinging, I'm slinging some loans and getting it done.
There's a lot of fun. I'm certainly not where I want to be with it, but
are you breaking out the old sales training books and shit?
Oh, man, I read them every day. I mean, and I've got a couple of them that are mainstays that I just keep going through, and no matter which ideology you choose to follow, it all kind of comes back to the basics. I mean, it's sitting down and blocking your time and doing the activities to generate more opportunity to go out there and be successful.
But let me ask you a question. When it comes to that coaching, right?
Yeah.
Coaching or training. I mean,
Yeah.
like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, you know,
You know what?
I think it's invaluable, but there are certain programs out there that I just really don't want to give $400 to tell me I suck too.
Well, what I can tell you, and some of those, I mean, I can tell you that they are life changers for so many folks out there. I mean,
Yeah, I'll agree with that one.
there are people that, you know, were coming out of operations and making, you know, barely tipping, you know, 70K in income, and they weren't satisfied with that. And now they're, you know, they're pushing $1 million in income, and that worked for them.
Yeah, touche.
I think that it, you know, what works for you and your goals is the best program for you. I have a lot of conversations about CRMs, especially with real estate agents. You know,
I love the fact, like, earlier in the podcast, you referenced a filing cabinet. And, like, I felt like I had to interrupt and be like, okay, kids, a filing cabinet
Yeah.
is a metal box
Well,
where you kept important documents.
and you know, I think training, and this is the same answer I give for CRMs. People, you know, we're working on some projects because, you know, a lot of the agents don't know what to do with their database. So I'm doing some coaching with the agents on that, and you know, they're asking which CRM is the best, and I'm like, well, the best one is the one that you're going to use.
Bingo.
They don't. You know, they don't know what they don't know, and they're not doing the activities. You know, there's, even if you just have one where it just drops, you know, once a week email drip, and that's all it's doing, just keeping you, you know,
Consistency.
top of mind. You know, to not name dropping any specific CRM, but so going back to the coaching thing, I think the one that is best is the one that you're going to do and that's going to work for you. A lot of people do not buy into the extreme, you know, in your face, hey, if you're late to a meeting, you're going to, you know, be fined $500.
Right.
You know, having had a lot of the guys in a platform like that, you know, work with me and work for me in the past, you know, the folks that do really very well at it will tell you it was life-changing for them.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know what? If that's what you need, then go do it. You know.
No, and I get your point. And I mean, obviously, certain type of person is going to gravitate to that, right? Like, I mean, and yeah, you're right. You're right. I shouldn't sit there and knock it. It's just
they're very high D personalities. They want to be the best. They are going to be at the top. And if they're not at the top, then they're depressed about it. You know.
Yeah.
And I am a high D, but I'm not. I guess I'm not that extreme on it. I want different things in my life. I don't, you know, I'm not necessarily, you know, motivated by just money. It's the time, you know, the time that I get to spend, you know, with my kids as they continue to grow up, and you know, if, like I said, if it works for somebody and that's what they do, then that's the best training platform out there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense. So give me something you want people to remember you by. Give me your nugget. I mean, you've dropped me some nuggets on this thing. So
well,
far, so.
you know, are you talking about from an industry perspective? I think, you know,
whatever you want, man.
You know, my legacy is the time that I've put into my family and my kids. You know, I mean, my daughter just finished up her accounting final today, and she's coming home tomorrow from Ole Miss, and you know,
what is she now?
She'll be she texted me and she said, "Dad, you have a junior in college."
Wow.
And then she called me and she said, "Do you feel old?" And I said, "Yes, I do."
Yeah.
Because you know, she's going to complete her degree in 4 years at Ole Miss, at a major university that I'm, you know, I was thrilled to death that she went to. I wasn't thrilled to death with the bill, but you know, it was something very special for me having, you know, a meager upbringing, you know, and coming, you know, from mostly, you know, labor industry family, you know, not really, education wasn't pushed. And so for me, you know, if there's any type of legacy or any type of, you know, something that I want people to remember me by, it'd be, you know, the 4 kids that I have, and that they are out there, you know, doing it and, you know, contributing to the world. You know, I have in my sons. It's funny because they're identical twins, but they couldn't be more further apart. And I have one who's very much the type A, where he's his clothes are all folded, and everything is perfect in his room. And then
Right.
the other one just couldn't care less. He's got a Whataburger bag on the ground, and just stuff all stuck together. And
It's been there for a while.
yeah, it's growing hair, and I look at those two, and I don't want the same things for them. I want them to be happy. I'm not going to, and I'm a big proponent of people, kids, and people in general, doing what is going to be satisfying to them. We've been in an era where we've pushed education on them, or secondary education on 2 generations now.
Yeah.
As the end all be all, and that's not necessarily the case.
No.
I mean, we have, especially in Austin, we have a huge overeducated, underemployed, labor force out there. And so just kind of going back to my kids, I want what they want with their lives. I want them to be, to contribute to society, to be good, good, solid people. And that's more than anything would be the legacy that I would look to
leave behind.
Yeah,
I agree with you, and that's something Nelda and I have talked about.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's the thing. I don't need him to be in the mortgage business. I don't
No.
need him. I don't need him to be in sales, right? I do want him to kind of understand the philosophy of people,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, it's like it's your path, because the way I see it is if they're happy, if they can find that one thing that they're going to do that's going to bring them joy and happiness,
yeah.
dude, the money will show up.
That's been my mantra, is that and that goes to some things. I read a devotional every morning, and the one this morning was it's something we've all heard, and many of us fail to kind of realize it. But if you enjoy what you're doing or love what you're doing, you're not going to work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And you're talking about kids not joining the industry, and it's funny because my daughter that's at Ole Miss is a double major in finance and real estate, and so I have a feeling I'll be I'll have an intern here in the short run,
and you know what, that's cool,
and
but
that's what she wants to do. My other daughter is a junior in high school, and she's not a salesperson. She's
Right.
She's an accountant. That's kind of her personality. But you're exactly right. Do what makes you happy. Obviously you raise your children to be contributors to society, and that's the biggest blessing, I think, and certainly the biggest legacy that I want to people to remember me by.
Yeah, I think I have one that might follow along the sales route.
Yeah,
but I'm not pushing that yet. But I mean, like, I'm looking at the characteristics, and it's
a tough racket. Have you disc tested them?
I actually made my wife and my daughter take a disc.
Yeah,
and what was funny is, proud papa and everything. I'm thinking like she's gonna, because I'm DI.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Medium S, lower C.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't know what that is, just Google it. But anyway.
Or call Bobby. He'll recruit you.
Yeah, there you go. I'll set you with one. I'll set you up with one. But yeah, so anyway, I give it to my wife and my daughter, and I'm like, guys, try this out. Like, it's going to be fun, whatever. We'll have a laugh. So my wife came out exactly as I expected.
Yeah.
High S, high C.
Yeah.
Right?
I can see that.
Real high C.
Yeah.
you know, like.
Well, she's got to deal with you.
Yeah. And so, which also explains how, like she's tolerated me.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, long story short, my daughter takes it. She's damn near identical to my wife. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. What the hell? Like, wait, but you're supposed to, but
yeah,
shoot,
Yeah.
And now, but now, again, and what's cool about that whole thing is, I've got a lot of people who say this is you should hire only to the disc. I don't really buy into that. Like,
yeah.
I think it's a great communicator tool.
Yeah.
It's a great tool to help understand the person, but when you
And
really
to
break it
manage
down,
them, to
manage
manage them,
them.
because it tells you what their motivators are.
Exactly. But to determine whether or not they're going to be successful, I don't think it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I tend to, yeah, those tests, and the way that I look at it is, I may call on someone or whether it's an agent that I'm trying to get deals out of or a branch manager that I'm trying to recruit, and they may be an SC and think that I'm obnoxious or
Right.
just not agree, and then someone who is closely related to their profile would call them and they get along great. And that's the way that I've always looked at it, is you need a community of folks, because 500 plus agents, I'm going to guess at least a third of them aren't going to react to my personality. They're going to react to somebody else.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you're not going to please everybody all the time.
Exactly. So I agree with you. I would never hire based on simply
solely
on
that.
There's a couple of them out there. There's the Berkman is one that I've just kind of recently done some research and taken, and it's a deep dive into kind of the basic discs, but so many of those things, I think that they tend to turn a manager or a leader into a kind of a curbside qualifier.
Yeah.
And if a company is going to hire based on that or make the decision
solely
make the decision not to hire me, then it's probably not the right place for me anyway. And I would caution any leader who's sitting there basing their decision on something.
Nah, man. I mean, here's the thing, and it goes back to again, sales, right? Like, and I'm often I always chuckle because I came across the book the other day. Remember when Perticchese and the other guy wrote the book Relationships?
Yes.
And we had like 12,000 copies of that stuff to hand out.
Yeah.
I actually read that book and it wasn't bad, but I always launch back to that one little line of people are like, well, I mean, dude, how am I gonna get it? Like, how can I get to the next level? And it's relationships.
It is. I mean, they're not far off. Richard and Frank are both very talented gentlemen. That's one thing that I always...
we work some really smart people.
Well, looking back throughout my career, and this is something that I try and pay forward, because I've been blessed, whether it was, my experience at Countrywide when they hired, great sales training to come in and train us. My experience with our previous company. We were, I was personally coached by Richard Godfrey, and, having, former Franklin Covey, professional speakers come in and, teach you and hold you accountable is something that was, it made a huge difference in my career. And,
absolutely.
And, one thing I remember is, doing a presentation in front of about 200 agents here in Austin, and somehow I get sandwiched in between those two. And first of all, I'm already nervous as heck because, 200 agents. The president of the holding company is there. The board of directors for the holding company that owns us is there, and I'm, supposed to talk about new accounting. Legislation that's rolling through, and the subject matter wasn't the hard part. It was getting up there and being sandwiched in between two professional speakers, who own the crowd. And
Frank went before you.
Yeah, Frank, and then Richard followed behind me. So
did Frank do the God Bless America or something like that, to where it's like he always would get like that rise out of the crowd?
Yeah, he can tee up a crowd like nobody.
Dude.
I mean, it's one of those things where, I love it. I actually reached out to him. He's doing real well, working for a major real estate firm. One of the
Brookshire still, right?
Yeah, Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. The people that came out of that and the experiences that we have. Our head of secondary is now head of secondary for one of the largest lenders in the country, and just tells you the talent level that was all there. We've got so many. And I told you this a couple of weeks ago. I said the pride for me is looking on the people that that I've mentored, having titles like, VP, area VP, or, having bigger titles than they had previously. And that's the honest truth, is how many people can look back and say, hey, he, contributed to where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I love to give props to Frank, to anybody that I've worked with in the past that really contributed to me. Whether it was Richard, the guy that took a chance on, this young kid and taught him, the mortgage business. There were so many people throughout my career that helped me. That's a point where I'm at right now. I'm like, okay, if I can help an agent, if I can help another loan officer come alongside me and kind of take it to that level to where you're like, man, I never had a boat, or I never, had the opportunity to move into this neighborhood, or I never, had the opportunity to get this car, or whatever that material thing is that they're searching for. But alongside that, help them to understand, hey, this stuff can go away in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
And you
enjoy the toy.
You need to make your why about something bigger than that, because those things come and go. And that's just kind of where I'm at with my career.
Well, and kind of learning from that, right? Because watching you do that, because I was definitely one of the people who benefited from that leadership style.
Yeah,
right. I
appreciate it.
Whether it was, okay, go learn Excel, or like
everybody hated.
I want you to create a company handbook.
Yeah,
but I mean, the cool part was it was like, okay, like it was the uncharted territory.
That was a team effort. I mean, I look at that. I look at that, and there's so many people.
Me and old Jason.
Well, and I mean, it's funny because so many people were part of that. I still carry that thing around because a lot of companies need it. They don't really have it.
Yeah.
So,
no, and then last time I saw Jay, and this was over a year ago, we were chuckling about how we had to put together the training.
Yeah.
The new employee training too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely you're gonna wear some hats, you know what I mean?
Well, when you're working for a smaller company, you do everything from mop the floors to clean the windows, and do a little bit of the accounting. But you get to a point to where you get into a position that you really enjoy and kind of find your niche.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. And I'll always be grateful to you for it.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
Even though I was scared to death when you left me that first voicemail when I heard your name. Because, dude, I hate to say it, man, but your name is just not freaking common. And it's like, hey, this is Damian. And it's like I get this voicemail, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
What is it? Dude from the Omen calling.
Yeah.
But to pay it forward, you thought I was of Latino descent.
Yes. The accent fooled me. I'm like, how's this guy's last name Scholl? And then when I met you, I'm like, oh, okay. But,
now it makes sense.
Yeah, but no, I mean that's funny. That's certainly something only our generation is going to understand, is the Omen part.
Yeah,
it
was a movie.
It was a movie, but yeah, man, no, I appreciate it. Again, just having a lot of fun. I mean, that's the thing about.
That's the key to it.
No matter what you do, I don't care. If you're, enjoy what you do. I mean, that's the bottom line. My goal would be to become a fishing guide 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I concur. Yeah. Just have the boat.
Yeah.
Captain Damian.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Just go Captain D though.
Captain D. Well, there's already some free branding on that too.
There you go. See. Well, dude, I really appreciate you taking time to come out and sit in the chair, man, and share your story with us.
Well, I'm glad I did. Sorry it took me so long. Just.
You know what? A lot of people. It's funny because South, dude, they're all over it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, I'll go on. But here, and I guess it's because we got so much tech and there's so much going on.
Yeah.
When either that or because I'm just known as a recruiter, when I call, it's like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? Let me think about it.
They're like, I need to tell my boss that I'm doing this.
Yeah, let me sign a non-disclosure. It's like, dude, just chill. It's all good.
Yeah.
So, but nah, man, I appreciate you taking time to come out and do it, brother.
All right, man. I appreciate
You knocked
it.
out an hour.
All right. Well, shoot. glad we could do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, give us a share. But for whatever you do, please stay social, everybody. See ya.